Let's see. We should be good to go. I do need to pull up the chat right over here. This is no KH4. That's... At some point I started making my game, right? With the idea of if Square Enix isn't going to make KH4, fucking I will, right? Mostly as a joke. But at this point I might actually like be finished with my game before KH4 releases, which would be insane. So who fucking knows, man? I noticed the graphic settings of Epic/Steam. Yeah, I'm playing this on PC because I'm not a maniac and I like playing my games at more than 30 FPS. I think the PS4 version of these games runs at 60, actually. Yeah, it should. But I'm playing it on PC anyway. So I've got a couple of bosses that KH4 still has no release date. Neither has my game, so it's anybody's game at this point. Kind of depends on how quickly I can progress. So I've got a couple of boss fights to take into account here. I power level to level 99, totally not with any mods or anything today from my level 1 save file, because that was the only save file I had of this game that was finished. Meaning that I have not unlocked all of the data organization fights. I do have, in theory, all of the levels for my forms that you need. Because you don't actually need level 7 in any of these forms, except for, I think, final form is kind of tricky to skip over. The dungeon is designed for you to need max level on all these abilities, but max level high jump can be substituted with double jump. The same thing kind of goes for the master form if you have max level glide, I believe. And then we have Wisdom form, which can also be cheesed with having double jump and then all that kind of stuff. So I think we can get to the data org. If not, I can always do the Lingering Will as well, because he's gonna kick my ass. But yours did not have a trailer. 2022, remember the trailer? Yeah, that's true. Anyway, we're gonna get started here with Sephiroth. That's a little loud in my ears. Hold on. We're going to get started with Sephiroth. I'm not going to just mindlessly beat the boss fights here, though. I'm actually going to pay attention to how their abilities work and how their aggression works and that kind of stuff a little bit more than I usually would. Because usually, especially level 99, Sephiroth is just a matter of just hitting X until you win and sometimes hitting triangle. It's also kind of loud for you guys, I think. Hold on. Let me just lower the volume a little bit. It's just Sephiroth's theme is very intense, okay? Alright, so we get started with that, and then you get an opportunity to... I'm level 99. This is not a level 99 scale fight. It's also critical mode, though, so who fucking knows? So I do want to have kind of like one of those teleport type abilities for my first boss fight as well. So kind of getting the timing down, those wouldn't be too bad. Alright. I'm not giving very much interesting commentary, I'm sure. I'm dead. Currently doing, editing my Final Fantasy 16, not 15. You played the battle game. Footage into a Let's Play. So my engagement will vary. That's okay, because my focus will vary even more than usually during development, because... Okay, so the timing for him is actually kind of interesting, because... It goes with mostly sounds. This is a thing that I also run into with my teleport attack, is the boss very often teleports outside of the view cone of the player camera, right? The way that I solve that is to just use the player's forward direction. So whenever he teleports, and mine is a tutorial boss, not a super boss, so it also should be a little bit easier. But the way that I fix that for me is instead of randomly teleporting somewhere around the player, it actually kind of seems like Sephiroth might be always teleporting behind the player, as a matter of fact. Something to pay attention to. But what I did is I always use the player's forward direction to spawn or to move the boss teleport location to like right in front of the player. That way the player never gets blindsided with an attack that comes off screen, which does happen in this fight. Again, mine is a tutorial fight, this is a super boss. There should be a little bit of a distance in difficulty between the two of them. But what I find here is that, and this is something that is obviously not a surprise, but what I find here is it's mostly the sound. I've been thinking about, okay, but what do I do with like the visual effects and the like spawn in animation and that kind of stuff? First and foremost, I don't see that almost like at all in this. It's got a bit of a visual effect, but I want to pay a little bit more attention. I'll probably scrub through the footage of this afterwards as well. I want to see, is there a significant time between the visual cue and Sephiroth actually showing up to do the attack, or is that kind of at the same time? What I expect is happening is there's a sound first, then there's a visual cue like a quarter of a second later maybe. Maybe like a tenth of a second. And then pretty synchronously with that visual cue, the actual attack happens. I cannot finish the entire JRPG within 3 days. I think I finished Final Fantasy 15, honestly, like in 5 days or something like that. I played a lot of it, don't get me wrong. And I also played, well, I played a long time. I didn't play a lot of it. I booked it through the open world sections because it's just not that good. Anyway, let's keep paying a little bit of attention to the teleport attacks there, because I think that will be valuable to... Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it definitely does the sound first, and then it does his visual. I just want to see... I think there is a little bit of a delay between the visual effects and him actually showing up. Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of delay still there. He's also just got a normal combo. And this, which is really cool and impressive the first time, but then just kind of gets old real quick. But the funny thing is, because he's hidden by that visual effect, it's not that big a deal that he just kind of pops in, right? That kind of just works. So let's just kind of bully him into his next phase so that we can see some more of his attacks. I was just going to say, he hasn't done Heartless Angel yet. There we go. That's a attack that I've just one-to-one lifted for one of my actual boss fights. Because I really like the idea of it. I do want you to go into like DM phase. There we go. But you're self-employed. Yeah, okay, that's fair. No, I'm dead. I'm so not used to playing on an actual PlayStation controller anymore. I played these games on Steam Deck over the last handful of months. And there you have those little, like, effectively, like, left and right trigger, like, 3 and 4. 4 and 5, depending on how you count, if you count the analogs as L3 and R3. And those are remappable. So I remap those to this, right, on the left side. So that I can easily, without taking my hand off the analog stick, navigate this menu. Frankly, I'm actually kind of annoyed that that's not a standard thing on modern controllers to begin with, those buttons, because it would be really nice for my game if I could actually map things to those buttons for people. Because I'm already short buttons, and I don't want to have a, like, context menu like this one. So it would be really nice if everybody could just start adding those to their controller so that I can assume people have those buttons. Why is YouTube chat blocking every second message of me? I don't know. Probably because I hate you. But yeah, welcome Stephen. I also have that menu in my game now, by the way, the skip scene one. I don't know, I think we've... Have we been on stream with that yet? I don't know if we have. Anyway. Can just kind of power our way through this, because we've done everything we need to do here. The delay between the visual effects and them actually showing up is very small. But there is a delay, I believe. I do want to make sure by just going through the footage later. It might be an instant. There's definitely first sound, then visual. God damn it, please do it on screen. I'm not scared, I just want to see you do the thing. So do the thing. You're hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself. Teleport! Ah, that's pretty instant, man. I don't know. That's the thing that I'm just going to have to look back through the footage on, I think. If there is a delay between the visual effect and him actually showing up, it's very minor. Actually, I do a shit ton of damage in this form, don't I? Yeah, might as well. It's just... one combo finish is just like a bar and a half of HP. It's insane. Hey, how about you don't do that? I know you have more attacks, by the way, Sephiroth. Could you please do the other attacks as well? I would like to look at them. Because you're almost dead. Correction, you're dead. I don't have a save file from before Sephiroth. So yeah, that's Sephiroth. I can just download them all if I want to refight them. That's okay. Well done. I mean, I am level 99 and it's like a level 50 scale fight. So the moment we enter Lingering Wheel, it's going to be a bit of a bigger deal, I think. But I'm thinking I want to try doing the cavern first. Because I would like... Actually, I think I have some absent silhouettes that I haven't fought yet, even. Because this is my level 1 save file. Which I just power level to level 99. Let me just go do the cloud thing so that I can actually get the Keyblade reward for it as well. And I sure as hell don't think I did Malusha absent silhouette on level 1, because he's got that insane mechanic where he also has like the death counter for the amount of hits you have, which is based on your like actual level. Right? So doing that at level 1 is insanity, so I don't think I would have done that. So I just have the original version of that, which will be very easy, because that's like a level 30 or 40 scale fight. The Phantom still is a fun ID for a boss. I do like that as well. Doesn't quite fit within the way that the magic system in my game works, because magic is like it's items that you equip, right? You have to decide on a magical loadout. So you very much could go into the fight not having all of the pieces that you would need to beat it. That's sad. The same could be said for the Phantom in Kingdom Hearts 1. Because if you just don't have stop, you're fucked, right? You're not beating that fight without stop. And I think... Is stop entirely an optional spell in Kingdom Hearts 1? I think you get at least one upgrade for it through story events. I think the other two are locked behind like 100 Acre Wood and Dalmatians or something like that. But now that I have Fenrir, I can equip that to you. And then you can finally actually... What do we put on Master Form usually? I think usually I put Sleeping Lion on this. Well, I think usually I put Ultimate Weapon on there actually. But I don't have that, so fuck that shit. Yeah, let's go ahead and try to make our way through the Cavern of Remembrance. Because I think if we can get through there and I can unlock effectively like 13 different bosses to just kind of mess around with whenever I want, that'll be really good for me. And then I also would need to do that in Kingdom Hearts 3 at some point, but I'm still don't have a finished Kingdom Hearts 3 save file on PC. I need to get on that, but I decided to do a level 1 run on 3 as well. So it's going to be a while before I finish that, most likely. But yeah, so remember how I said you can cheese this even if you don't have max level high jump? Because all these trials are supposed to test whether or not you have max level in a dry form. And this is the first one, Velo form. If you don't have max level high jump, you can't make it through here. Except if you have aerial dodge, you can't make that one without it, I think. Oh, maybe you can. And especially glide helps a lot here as well. There's also a skip here that I always forget how to do. But there is a way to skip ahead here. I just don't remember the details. Not seen any Kingdom Hearts 3 level 1 runs. Would I think they're doable because it's broken magic. The issue is that level 1 runs, well, the ones that I'm doing them in critical mode because I feel like if you're going in for a challenge, it's kind of weird to do it on anything other than critical mode, right? And MP is heavily nerfed in Kingdom Hearts 3 when you do critical mode. Critical mode in itself in Kingdom Hearts 3 is pretty brutal. Let's see if we can just make this without transforming. We can, because we can abuse the hell out of glide. But people actually say that Kingdom Hearts 3 is one of the easier level 1 runs. And so far, I don't know, man. Kingdom Hearts 1 definitely seems like the easiest to me. And also the most fun, because it's much slower pace in its combat, right? That's not the form that I wanted to use, but sure. I mean, I kind of get it, because you can't really nerf the magic spells themselves, because that would suck a lot if you did that. But they did want to probably nerf how powerful magic is, and just being able to cast less of it makes a lot of sense. The summons are still overpowered as hell, though. Because they just take your entire MP bar regardless and heal you. But you do need a full MP bar, so it means that if you're using the summons, you effectively are just not using magic. But they are still pretty powerful, I believe. I haven't really looked like too deep into it. But I think, just like in Kingdom Hearts 1, The moment you get Simba, you pretty much win the game. So far, I only have the Dream Eater and Ralph. And supposedly, Ralph is also a really good summon. I just suck at using him. So, there's that. It's actually kind of fun doing level 1 runs because it kind of forces you to interface with mechanics that you don't usually use. In similar ways that speedrunning does, but I don't know. I kind of find a longer challenge that takes a couple of weeks to complete more fun than a speedrun where you spend months doing the same thing over and over again. Which is actually kind of what level 1 run is as well. But with more frustration, I guess. They both have their merits. I both like doing them. This is also probably the best designed like little dungeon in Kingdom Hearts 2 that we're going through right now. So it might be good to pay attention a little bit to the level design as well. Yeah, no, I'm not racing level 1. That is insanity. My level 1 run for Kingdom Hearts 2... Well, actually, the game time... My save file says it's only 11 hours, but that's... Every time you die, it resets your playtime, I think, to the last time... Like, to your actual continue point. So... It's probably more than 11 hours. I think Kingdom Hearts 1, it took me about 30 some hours, all things considered. Okay, so for that I definitely do need aerial dodge. So I might be slightly fucked here. Because I don't think I can even transform into the right form. Hey there, welcome. So how am I going to deal with that? I guess I'm just going to try again to abuse Glide. Nah, I just need more. I just need more height, man. Yeah, they did do a good job there, closing that off. Ooh, that might be a bit of a problem. This might be the only one that you can't, well, that I can't cheese. I'm sure that there's some ways to cheese it. If we go back down, there's more places to get the stuff and the things. What's this? This is me just kind of fucking about, trying to get to some boss fights to like kind of analyze. Because I didn't have a save file for it yet, apparently. Look, I've played these games a billion times. I don't know what I did on what platform at this point. There's one more all the way back there. And then I'll have enough to... I won't have enough for the final form portion, probably. Well, there's a lot of combat in between then and now, so... Might be enough. I mean, I would gladly redo a Kingdom Hearts 1 race, now that I have the speedrun. Well, it's been a while since I've done a speedrun of it, but now that I have the speedrun kinda down, I would gladly do another Kingdom Hearts 1 race. My time... Real-time attack time is like 3:13 now, I think. In-game time, it's just under 3 hours, I believe. Is this Warner Brothers slop? No. I feel like that's a meme that I should know, because I've heard that phrase more last, like, week. But I've also been, like, chronically offline for the past, like, week and a half, because... Man, my Unreal project just kind of imploded in some ways, because I fucked around a little bit too much and I found out. So I have not had a lot of like social media time. Okay, I managed to cheese it just fine. Already beat you at Kingdom Hearts 1. I mean, just let me learn the Kingdom Hearts 2 speedrun, okay? Give me a couple of months. But yeah, for sure, I don't think you have much of a chance anymore on Kingdom Hearts 1. Or Birth by Sleep specifically as Aqua, I've also done a couple of runs off. But that is a very boring, not fun run at all. But it's also like 1 hour 20 long or something like that at my pace. Instead of the 3 hour long run that Kingdom Hearts 1 is. I don't like speedruns that are more than like 2 hours. I still think that Mario 64 is like the ideal speedrun, to be honest. It has a bunch of categories. First and foremost, so you can just pick what you like most. Personally, I like 16 star. It's nice and short. It's got some really like cool glitching tech, and the skill ceiling is still absurdly high. The learning progress is kind of cool because you have to choose like, okay, which stars are easiest to get in a consistent way versus when you get better at them. Which star do I like drop to start learning like a new star that is faster? Don't let me die. Mario 64 16 star honestly is like the ideal speedrun. Birth by Sleep races are fun but very short. If you do the full game, like all 3 campaigns plus like secret episode, you are nearly as long as just a normal Kingdom Hearts game. The issue is that unlocking the secret episode requires you to get all the reports, which means that you have to do Mirage Arena, so you'd probably need to pre-prepare some save files with those reports. Because it's done on a per, like, meta save basis, I think. It's just as long as you have the reports, all of them, across at least 3 save files, you can unlock it. Even if the save file that you're playing on right now doesn't have it. I think. Don't quote me on that. But having to go through like the entire Mirage Arena and all that kind of stuff for those reports wouldn't be a lot of fun. Anyway. So yeah, this is the one thing that you can't cheese. You do absolutely need high-level Final Form for that. Would you at least be open to TVA? I mean, I guess we could just do Terra Ventus Aqua and not do the final and the secret episode. If you wanted to do the secret episode, you would need to be playing on critical mode anyway, because on like standard, you need to 100% the game essentially to unlock it. Which is even more insane. Like, on critical mode is just all the reports. This is not good for bitrate, by the way. But it would be kind of interesting if we did TVA and we did them in a different order. When I have time, that's a funny joke. That's a really funny joke you did there. But yeah, if we did that, it would be fun if we did them in a different order. Like, I start with like Ventus, you start with Terra, or the other way around. And then ideally, we do them effectively in like opposite order. So we both do like Aqua in the middle, maybe. But we also end with opposite, so that it's kind of difficult to tell who's like in the lead. But it should be pretty doable to schedule something like that in at some point, to be honest. Because it's only really like 5 or 6 hours of game time, most likely. I mean, my schedule kind of sucks. I won't deny that. But I'm also fairly flexible in most regards because I don't have like... well, I was going to say I don't have a job. That's not quite true, of course, but I'm self-employed. So I'm like quite flexible in that regard. But at that rate, I mean, we might as well do Chain of Memories too, right? I'm just fucking with you. Chain of Memories is just an RNG hell. There's no skill there. I'd sooner do Recode it, but for that they first need to like finish the Madden project thing on it. I remember this being difficult. I don't know what happened, but this used to be difficult. I don't know what. Well, I'm not quite done with it yet, to be fair. But on standard mode, when I was like 12, this was a hell. And, well, I'm on critical mode now, and it's going fairly smoothly, all things considered. I guess I have played these games for like literal hundreds of hours since I was like 12, so there is that. I'm also about to die, so there's also that. If I can at least get Valor form, I can heal. I don't need to heal. I don't need to heal. I need to heal. I think I had Cure there, but it doesn't matter. So yeah, these waves are going a little longer than I remember them going on as well. So that's maybe why they were so difficult. With slightly better MP management and slightly more use of the couple most overpowered abilities in the game. Also, having limit form at the start helps. Well, I guess I had limit form originally as well, because it only exists in Final Mix. Never mind. That feels like it's the last... Well, never mind. Okay, don't die now. That would be really dumb, because I do feel like this probably is the final stretch. There's one more. There we go. Okay. By the way, your series on turn-based combos was a nice one. Are you willing to make a bonus episode of a mechanic to the system? Maybe at some point, depending on what the mechanic is. I guess. But it probably would be a little while before I get around to doing that. Still easier than the end of the world waves. That's the thing though, right? Because I've kind of learned how to deal with that. If you have enough MP, Simba can kind of... You only have to do the first like 2 or 3 waves and Simba just kind of melts the rest. It's really easy. But you do need to have cheer for like Goofy on. You have to have like, I think, 9 MP or something like that. So there's a bit to it. But if you do have that, it's pretty easy. Because you just kind of skip it. again, Simba is really clutch in Kingdom Hearts 1. Okay, we have all these. I haven't got them all unlocked yet. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through and find the absent silhouettes, and I'm going to kill those first. But now that we have done that, I have a shortcut back to there. So that'll do. We're just going to do the easy versions. The easy versions of the fight will allow me to observe their behavior a little bit more as well. So that's kind of nice. So in TTRPG have an action economy, so if someone extra actions beside an attack mainly allow movement, similar to Baldur's Gate. I did want to I did want to make a turn system that is kind of more in depth at some point than just everybody gets one turn in a round. Kind of like an action value system or like a priority system or whatever, where if a character like does a certain ability that is particularly like fast or gives them extra action points or whatever, they might be able to get like 2 moves in before anybody else even does anything. Or they on average might have like 2.5 moves for every move a average character would have. I might still get around to doing that at some point. The issue is that the way that the entire turn-based RPG system, as I have it constructed right now, works, really kind of does fundamentally operate under the assumption that a turn is everybody moving once, everybody doing one thing. So if I want to change that, it would not just be a simple like mechanic added on top. It would be a pretty fundamental change to the way that like the battle management works. So I did want to do something like that initially, and I might like do a follow-up in the future around something like that. But for the time being, probably not, because it is going to be a pretty significant rework of some stuff, which would be quite a lot. That would probably be a whole miniseries in itself. But I do like that, because initially what I wanted to do is I wanted to base the turn-based RPG segment in my own game on the way Final Fantasy X works. Which also has like an action point system, effectively. With like even a turn or a preview. It works very similarly to Octopath Traveler as well. Where you have like the turn order in your UI as an element. And you can, in real time, see when you select new abilities, how that impacts the turn order. I decided not to do that because it was kind of already complicated enough as is what it comes down to. But yeah, that's one of those things that if you want that's a good thing to have as like a specification for your system from the start, because in the end, at least the way that I made it, maybe if you made your entire system differently, it would be easier to slot in a different like turn system. But at least the way that I made it, everything kind of revolves around that like battle scene as a manager object, and that entire thing works on a loop of turns. Yeah, it probably would be kind of messy to go back in and dissect that. It would be possible, I think. And it is something that I do want to do at some point, but it probably will be a bit. Kind of depends how quickly I do on if I end up wanting to have that Final Fantasy X like in my own game or not. I also still need to play Clear Obscure. I've seen people play it. It looks really good. I also need to pay attention to what this boss fight is. Well, actually I don't, because this boss fight is kind of gimmicky now that I think about it. But still, his behavior might be good to take a look at. Man, this is so much easier than it is at level 1. You have no idea. I tried to do this guy at level 1 as well, and it did not go well. Because that just instant kills you at level 1. To nobody's surprise. There we go. Okay. Needed to focus there for a moment. This fight actually not that interesting, turns out. Something like Legend Arceus, strong and swift style. Kind of like that, yeah. That also effectively is just an action point system where if you do a strong style, it takes more action points from you. And if you do a swift style, it either takes less action points or sometimes maybe even gives you action points. So the idea behind how that would work would be... do I have... Oh, that screenshot taken. I don't remember what the shortcut is for like drawing stuff on Windows that I'm used to using. Well, the idea would be, without visualizing it then, that instead of what you have right now in my system, where you just get a turn order based on getting every character and sorting their speed stats and then checking which speed stat corresponds to which character and then returning an array of characters that is sorted based on their speed. What you would do is... the basic implementation is pretty simple, because you would, instead of having a speed stat, everybody would have a value, like a variable on them for like their action values, right? And certain abilities might take more action value and certain might take less. And then all that you need to do is just make that sorting based on who has the most action points. So somebody that has like 10 action points would be at the top of that list. And then when they select something that takes 5 action points, they might still be at the top of that list, right? So if you don't want that visualization that games like Final Fantasy X and Pokemon Arceus, for instance, have, that's actually fairly simple, because instead of having this idea of like a turn loop, you just do it turn by turn. You just check, hey, we just had a turn. Who has the highest action points? It's your turn now. That is fairly simple. That much I could do fairly easily without too much trouble, I think. It's mostly then predicting into the future and visualizing that, which gets a little hairy, because you need to like in real time update that visualization based on the ability that you currently have chosen, which kind of gets tricky. But not that bad, actually. Because you just kind of look ahead like 10 turns in total, right? Because you probably, at the end of every turn, just give every character one. It's the predictive stuff that kind of throws me, that I would need to think about. The actual mechanical stuff, I don't really think would be that big a deal. I'd have to fuck around a little bit with things and see what actually works and what doesn't work. It's mostly the predictive stuff that I'm worried about, which I do think in a system like that you do want to have a visualization for the turn prediction. Like one doesn't really work that well without the other, I think. Might be mistaken there. It might be entirely fine. I don't know. But that's at least like the basic idea behind those systems, I think. Without having like physically made one before. But that's how I understand the Pokemon one and the Final Fantasy X one to work. But I don't really know the details. I haven't made it myself to run into like roadblocks that you would surely run into. This fight can go fuck itself, by the way, because the anybody who isn't familiar with this fight, the number above my head starts off as the level that you are. And every time you get hit, it goes down, and when it reaches 0, you die. And you can get those numbers back if you counter certain of his attacks properly, which is quite dangerous to do. Like this one, I think. You can get those numbers back. But if you do well enough, and you don't need the numbers back, you can deal some more damage to them instead. This is a really well-designed fight. It just sucks to play if you're too low a level. What I am kind of curious about, though, is I think this is a boss that actually does more than one ability at a time. Most of the time in Kingdom Hearts, I think bosses only do one ability at a time, right? But this guy kind of spams abilities at you. Because he does this, which changes the playing field, and then he does that. And even before that is finished, he's already doing just like a normal-ass combo on your ass again. So, I think he's pretty unique in that regard. On level 1, this is effectively a damageless run. Otherwise, every attack he hits is instant death. Well, every attack from his scythe is instant death. Like this little firebomb, that deals HP damage instead. So that doesn't actually decrease the number, I think. But yeah. You also can't guard against it, which is annoying. You have to avoid it. Okay, maybe time to start paying a little more attention so that I can actually win this fight. Okay, that guy also has a... I forgot about that. He also has a teleport attack. And I don't have... this is bad. I've never done that with God before. I always fuck that up, usually. Huh. Usually I use Reflect for that, because you can just Reflect spam. I do kind of like this idea for an attack, though. Maybe I will give my Grim Reaper, which, I don't know if you can tell, but my Grim Reaper is heavily inspired by Malusia with the scythe and all. Maybe I'll give my Grim Reaper one of those types of attacks as well, where he just kind of spawns effectively like fire pillars. Yeah, I think that'll be kind of cool. And I think more of my bosses also need a DM phase where they are just invincible and you just need to dodge them for a while. Because they don't have that right now. They don't really have phases to begin with, to be honest. Probably should program in a little bit more for that as well. But yeah, this is the only absent silhouette that actually gives you a good reward with a drive gauge up. So the developers knew that this was the most bitch-ass one. But yeah, that's another one done. So interesting thing that we noted there about the multiple abilities at a time, because that's kind of what I've been doing for like phase scaling. I kind of have a phase system in at least one of the boss fights. I think the next one is right here. At some point, instead of doing one ability at a time, my Reaper fights start doing 2 abilities at a time. So he's got a couple of abilities that pair well together. And he just starts doing them both at once to kind of like throw like more chaos at you in a way that is hopefully still at least reasonably fair. That's kind of my version of a DM phase, I guess. When he's on a 20% health, he starts combining abilities. And there's a couple of abilities that don't necessarily have to end before he can start the next one as well. So I guess in some ways I am doing the same. For the most part, abilities are only one at a time though. But that could be an interesting thing to differentiate bosses between like bosses and normal enemies. Being able to do more than one ability at a time. Where maybe mini bosses then also can have slightly different AI behavior. Because I will have mini bosses in the game as well. Because that's going to be the way that you get some of the more rare drops to craft some of the more powerful spells. So maybe mini bosses will have that as kind of a thing that they can do. They'll just be normal enemies, but instead of only being able to ever do one ability at a time, they will be able to do more than one ability at a time. They don't necessarily have to wait for an ability to end to do the next ability. With the way I currently have my ability set up working, that's going to be kind of difficult to do. Not necessarily, because I can just make it do multiple abilities, like nested. That should be fine, actually. Yeah, so again, this guy, no, girl, has this DM phase, right? Where at about, I don't know, what is this, like 50 HP, assuming that one bar is about 100 HP, she just doesn't attack, and she can't be hit. Also, maybe don't use Thunder Magic on the Thunder Girl. A maximum MP increase is actually also interesting. So yeah, I think adding in just a trigger for a DM attack where they just become invincible and all you have to do is survive for a certain amount of time is probably a good idea. Yeah, I think having... I think that's what my bosses are missing at the moment. Well, there's a lot of things that they're missing, to be fair. But one of the things that they're definitely missing, I think, is that DM phase. Where you're just forced to run away. Because they have, like, ultimate attacks, which are just more annoying attacks to deal with than normal ones. But I think having just, like, a desperation move... ability, that's what DM stands for, anybody who doesn't know, where they're just straight up invincible, and you kind of get almost into like a more Mario boss fight state, where in Mario boss fights it is a matter of avoiding until the boss fight gets tired, and then you can attack without too much trouble in between. I think that's a pretty good design philosophy. Obviously, most of these hack and slash bosses don't really follow that design pattern throughout the entire boss fight too much. Matter of fact, they actually kind of do the opposite. They just let you wail on them, and at some point they say, hey, now it's my turn to attack. So in that regard, they kind of are the Mario in this situation, right? You are the boss fight. That's actually an interesting way of looking at it. Huh. Hadn't really thought about that before. I say Mario, but like Zelda does the same thing. And Zelda is a bit closer to the gameplay style that we're working with here. So, yeah. But I think that these desperation moves kind of like go back to that design pattern of avoid and opening. And I think that's a thing that my bosses probably do need. So yeah, the desperation moves, they probably... the way that Kingdom Hearts does it, I know, is they just have an HP trigger. If they get to that HP amount, they just do the attack. No matter what happens, they just go into that attack. Which is also a good way to break the player out of being able to juggle a boss fight. Because obviously you don't want to be able to juggle a boss fight. In my case, the way that I deal with juggling boss fights is boss fights just don't get stunned. They just don't, like, take knockback. So in my case, you can't juggle a boss fight to begin with. But then after a certain HP threshold, they do it once, and then they just unlock that as an ability that they can do from that point forward. I think there's probably a cooldown on it. I would have to imagine. One thing I want to learn is QTE for Unreal. Always fun to have to run from a boss with kind of mechanics. I do have a QTE. I have a tutorial on the way that I made my QTEs. I do plan on also implementing some more of that, which is, again, heavily based on the reaction commands here in Kingdom Hearts 2. I had like an instant kill QTE at some point, like if you're below 10% HP, or if you got an enemy to below 10% HP, there was a percentage chance to create a QTE that could instant kill them. Ended up being more annoying and bothersome, and nobody actually ended up using it. Even though it drops more experience and that kind of stuff. So I kind of scrapped that. But I have the QTE system, and I think I just kind of want to make reaction commands out of them, to be honest with you. Because I'm taking so much from Kingdom Hearts 2 already, so I might as well. But yeah, adding in QTEs, especially for boss fights as well, gives them that special little sauce, right? That's the thing. I need to make most of my... oh, I don't have... You know what? Just kill me. Killing me is actually going to be kind of difficult for you, isn't it? We'll see. I need to have fire equipped for this, otherwise it's going to be a pain in the ass to deal with. But my normal enemy AI needs to be a little bit more sophisticated as is. That's what I've been working on before I reorganized and kind of broke part of my project. I'm putting my project back together. Hopefully next week we'll actually be able to stream the development again. Okay, just attack me please before Donald wakes up and heals me. Thank you. But as I make my normal AI more sophisticated, they get closer to the boss fights in their complexity, which means that the boss fights need to get like extra stuff added to them as well. Otherwise, they're just big enemies. And I think I want to have some enemies that just have normal QTEs anyway, probably. But I think adding QTEs to the boss fight is going to be, or boss fights, is going to be a major part of what makes them different. Is it blueprints? I've been looking into it, but all I got is things sold on Fab and YouTube. Yeah, effectively all my tutorials are in Blueprint, because I figure if you follow along with a Blueprint tutorial and you prefer C++, if you prefer C++, you probably also I have way too much experience because of the mod I used to get to level 99. My philosophy is, if you prefer C++, you probably know enough C++ to be able to figure out what includes you need to get certain functions to be able to use. And if you use things like Rider as your IDE, for instance, it just kind of does that for you to begin with. So I can highly recommend Rider. Yeah. So pretty much everything that I do is Blueprint, unless it is a tutorial that specifically requires C++, like some gameplay ability stuff. I have some other minor things that I do in C++, but mostly I do everything in Blueprint because C++ users should be able to understand it, but the other way around, if I do things in C++, people that are used to Blueprint might have panic attack. So yeah, the way that it works is a little weird though, because it uses the inputs inside of the widget, which you're usually not supposed to do. I find for these QTEs that it actually kind of makes sense. And it just works fine. But technically speaking, you you're not supposed to use inputs within widgets, usually, I think. That's what I've been told anyway. I kind of think it's bullshit. There might be a reason for it, though, that I just don't know. Just being very, like, 100% clear there. But I found that the QTEs, the way I have them set up, work fine. I would suggest allowing your boss fights to fight using a map as well. Yeah, so the Reaper boss fight that I have has an attack where he kind of just disappears and he reappears at one of a set of pillars around the boss arena. It's a fairly small arena, but it's a round arena and there's like pillars around it. And he can reappear at one of those, and you can see which one it is because it's got a skull on top of it. They all have. And the eyes within the skull will be glowing and the skull will be looking toward you. So that's a bit of environmental stuff which is specific to that boss fight, meaning that boss fight can only take place within that room, which makes it a little bit more special. The next boss fight that I have against the mole character that I made a while ago has a kind of different mechanic where you need to lure the boss fight to certain places to make him attack pillars, to make the pillars collapse on top of him, dealing damage, stunning him, and allowing you to then deal damage more to him. Again, it's an environmental mechanic that makes that boss fight unique, as opposed to just a big enemy in a special room. So I kind of agree with that, and I've already, with both of the bosses that I have so far, not to count the tutorial boss because that's still fairly simple, but both of the major bosses that I have so far, I do have some environmental mechanics because I think that does do a lot. I plan to use QTE with top down so I can click with mouse. That's even better because then you don't need to do the whole weird input action mapping within within the QTE, which again should be fine, but yeah. I can't use fire on the shield, you use fire on him, now I remember. Alright, now he dies. This is kind of an interesting fight for the gimmick in it though. Too bad he died too quick, but the gimmick is that you have that little like data reader under you, and that data bar fills up and it spawns in shadow clones of you. And the higher that bar is, the more powerful that shadow clone will be. We'll probably see it at some point if I do the data fight. Which I'm thinking on Thursday I'll just stream the data fight and Lingering Will maybe. Because I probably won't be quite ready yet to get back into the project. I'm getting there. It's almost there, but it's still not like quite ready to get back on stream, I don't think. This also is a really interesting boss fight, the one that we're about to do, actually. Because he traps one of your allies, which obviously is not very useful for me, because I don't have allies in my game. But he has kind of like a DM trigger as well, which at some point, like if you do enough damage, he just forcefully captures you into his book world. At which point you need to find the one book that is casting the spells, because that's the real one. And you need to attack that one until it's dead, at which point you get a quick time event to throw him out of it. And that cycle just kind of repeats 2 or 3 times within this fight. Within the data fight, obviously, that repeats a lot more. And within here, you actually get the... I never figured out how this... how this attack actually works. Anybody in chat watching who knows how you can consistently avoid that attack? Because I've I've played this fight probably 50 times, and I still don't know how to avoid that attack. It's kind of sad, to be honest. So yeah, I'm not going to be copying that attack because it's super unintuitive. I don't think I'm going to be copying anything from this fight in general because it's fairly heavily based around around the mechanics of having a team, which obviously in my game you don't. But maybe there is something to the idea of having not really a desperation move, but more of a desperation phase, where it just does something. It effectively just changes up the entire fight at a certain point in the HP bar, and you just have to go do a different fight for a little bit. And once that fight is finished, you can go back to the main fight. I actually think that would be interesting for the boss fight in the armory, because that is the boss fight that's going to give you the shield as a reward. So that kind of works, I think, not for a boss fight I'm going to be making anytime soon, but for a boss fight that just at some point says, hey, I'm going to sit the fuck down and have my shield up. You need to deal with a couple of like small enemies, maybe within a timer. And if you don't do it within a timer, he starts like healing himself or whatever. And then only once those enemies have been defeated, does the boss fight himself get back up and become vulnerable again. I do think that just throwing an entirely like different fight in there at some point is kind of interesting. It's also what for anybody who plays RuneScape, it's also what Jad does in the fight caves, right? When you get him to 50% HP, he spawns like 6 healers, and you need to deal with those healers before going back and being able to fight him to the end. And if you don't deal with those healers before he gets back to 100% HP, he can spawn them again when he gets to 50% again. So it actually does force you to deal with them in a proper way. I think Jad is a pain in the ass as a fight, by the way. Mostly because it takes an hour to get to him, but I do think that that's an interesting idea for a boss fight. It's just kind of sidestepping the boss fight as a whole for a bit and forcing the player to go do something else. It's cop game. Most of the time it's just luck. Yeah, that's kind of what I do as well. If you have second chance once more, just making sure that you have either like drive or MP to heal up afterwards, it's fine. That's the reason that I can make it through the end of the boss fight. But you would think that an attack like that needs to have a consistent way of being able to avoid it, right? Because otherwise that's just bad design. Because there has to be a way. Because it's beatable on level 1, and on level 1 you don't have second chance on once more. So there has to be some way to tell in advance. I would say if there's a hint of annoyance in boss fights, the mechanic is good. That's the fine balance, right? Because there needs to be some amount of frustration, because without the frustration you don't feel the accomplishment of having beaten it in the end. Let's save over this. So there needs to be some frustration. Like in order to impact people's emotions positively, you also do need to trigger them at least a little bit negatively. I think we have all of these silhouettes beaten now. That's just like art creation 101. There needs to be contrast in order for people to actually feel the emotions that you want them to feel strongly. And that's kind of the entire reason that Dark Souls is a game that people enjoy, is because it is so deeply, deeply frustrating. But then when you actually finally beat it, it is so satisfying, equally to the amount that you were frustrated. And I don't personally like Dark Souls, not because of the frustration aspect of it. I actually quite like that bit. I just don't like the moment-to-moment sluggishness of the gameplay. That's a subjective thing. I know a lot of people do like it. But I like games like Hollow Knight. The combat in Hollow Knight is really like... It's got that same loop of frustration and hopelessness, and then the euphoria of beating it. Cuphead is another game that I really thoroughly enjoyed for that same reason. Cuphead is nothing but just that. Cuphead just takes out like 90% of the in-between bullshit that most Souls-likes have, and just does the boss rush thing, and I love that. I don't want it to be that bad in my game. I want my game to mostly feel a little bit just like a hack-and-slash power fantasy, closer to what Kingdom Hearts feels like. But the bosses specifically probably should pose some kind of significant challenge that people should die at least a couple of times. Cuphead is a lot of fun. Yeah, it's definitely... I've never played the DLC, but... You guys want to do my favorite fight out of these 13? I fucking love this fight. It's really good. And this might be my least favorite fight. Anybody who knows these games is just nodding along like, yeah, no, that makes sense. This fight kind of sucks. You know what other fight kind of sucks? This one. Really sucks for the data fight. The rest of them are kind of just fine. This, absolute favorite up, so we're going to do that one. Power fantasy games are always fun. Yeah, so I think there needs to be a balance of having that power fantasy, but also having a little bit of a challenge. And I think just being able to slice mostly through the normal enemies and then the bosses being challenging is probably the way to go for that. But most basic ass mistake you can make, don't try to get 2 finishes off on Roxas. And what do I do? Right away. Again, not 2 finishers because he doesn't let you do it. I've gotten pretty good at this fight since doing them at level 1, by the way. He does become a bit of a bitch boy when you get his keyblades though, admittedly. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite fight in the game. This might be one of my favorite fights in the series, to be honest. It's just really fun and satisfying because once you understand that this fight is all about blocking, which is not something that this series usually makes you do. Usually this series is mostly about dodging. It's actually super fun. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no 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 no. We ain't doing that. Yeah, Roxas is one of those fights that really shows you that a good boss fight is also breaking of like gameplay patterns in a lot of ways. Because he's not that difficult. He's just difficult if you try to do the same thing that you've done all game long. Also, that reaction command is kind of difficult to do, admittedly. Oh, wrong button. Okay, if it wasn't for that reversal, I would have done him first try, okay? Just want everybody to be clear on that. But yeah, he's a fun fight. If any of my fights can even get to like 10% of what this fight is, I think that'll be good. So I probably will be studying specifically this one quite a lot. But I do think like one of the things that I just said, which is like breaking off gameplay patterns, is probably a good thing to keep in mind. That said, you don't want to break them too much, because you also do want some cohesiveness between the main gameplay in a specific area and that area's boss fight. So there's a bit of a balance there. I would say that you need a twist on the gameplay. It's not like this gameplay is entirely different all of a sudden, right? But it is, again, a more defensive fight, in that you actually need to block and not just run away. Because if you just try to run away and do the like Mario strategy thing, right, where you run away until you have an opening and then attack, he's just so aggressive as a boss. He just doesn't give you that opening. You need to create that opening by blocking him. Preferably with this, because it does deal damage. Also, don't get too greedy. Again, one of the main things that you will learn very quickly with this fight is he doesn't like it when you do two combo finishes. When you try to get greedy and get in a double combo finisher on him, he's gonna revenge you. And you're gonna have a bad time. But actually, just blocking him is a little more difficult. But it's actually better than using Reflect. Reflect is easier because you can spam it, of course, but... Also, learning to use that move with square in the middle of your combo, that helped me a lot. Wait, did I just have two? Nah, I probably am just going crazy. Wait, does Leaf Racer actually block him? You can get in two combo finishers if you count that as a combo finisher. God damn it. And you do need to time your block there. So it might be easier to just do this. But yeah, the margins are pretty thin with this fight, not gonna lie. But once you get it out, it's so satisfying, man. Too bad my game doesn't really have a block mechanic, so I can't like one-to-one steal this. And I don't really intend on adding one just in order to be able to copy this, because being able to block significantly changes the whole moment-to-moment gameplay, and I want my game to be more offensive than defensive in most cases, because I do want to lean in more towards the hack and slash than the Souls-like kind of feel, right? So, yeah, I do think that the once you unlock the shield, right, as a weapon, you get an opportunity to block, because that's all that the shield will be able to do. Block. See, I fucked up a little timing there, and you're done. Give me strength, and then immediately don't give me strength, please. To be fair, this actually is easier in the data fight than the original, because in the original you don't have glide yet, so dodging that is actually a piece of shit. I still had MP, but sure. Still not the thing that I wanted to do. This is the one that I wanted to do, because this gives him a bad time. But this is actually a bad time for me now, so I guess jokes are on me. So who wants to see the Lingering Will? Because if you think that this is insane... oh, have I got a surprise for you. Lingering Will is by far... Until Kingdom Hearts 3 was released, finally. Not even Kingdom Hearts 3, actually. Until Remind, the DLC for 3 was released. It was the most difficult boss in the series for, like, more than a decade. Then 3 came along and introduced some actual like bullshit mechanics with some boss fights, which are technically more difficult, but I would argue not better designed. Because Kingdom Hearts 3 has some super bosses that can take away your max HP. So if you kind of just fuck up in that fight, you're going to be left with just having 1 HP and no ability to heal, because your max HP is getting lowered. With, as far as I know, no reasonable way to get it back either. So I don't like that mechanic. Lingering Will is the best super boss in the series. Like, this is... Depending on whether or not you count Roxas as a super boss, obviously the version that we're doing now is a super boss. Because it's just a normal fight turned up to 11. And you could argue that it's actually the other way around. Roxas kind of feels like he was designed as a super boss, and then the story version is just leveled down to about level 40. You could definitely make an argument about that, but as far as like super bosses go, you have Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1 is pretty good. You have the Phantom in Kingdom Hearts 1, which is actually really well made. Kurt Zisa, which can go die in a hole. It's a really dumb fight. It's not fun at all. What else do you have in Kingdom Hearts 1? There's one more, right? Oh yeah, Ice Titan. Yeah, Ice Titan is boring. Very boring. And then in Kingdom Hearts 2 you have all of these like data fights. Birth by Sleep has very bad super bosses. I remember them being very cool, but I replayed them recently. Well, it's not entirely true, because Armor of the Master kind of does the same thing as Roxas, but in a less well-designed way. Because it is a fight that heavily just forces you to block. To, like, create an opening. But the way that it does it there is just, you can't deal damage to him unless you block. Like, you just deal 1 HP damage, even at, like, level 99. Which is kind of dumb. I guess you can't force your way through it, but you can't force your way through Roxas either. And Roxas is just generally, like, more well-designed. Yeah, the mysterious figure in Birth by Sleep is ass. It's really bad. No Heart is kind of decent. Except No Heart kind of acts like Roxas here, except that he's not a fight that encourages blocking. I don't know what the idea behind No Heart is, because he doesn't have openings where you can attack him, but he also doesn't really respond to being blocked. So I don't know what they want you to do there. Maybe I'm just missing the point of the fight entirely, which is possible. I think it's just a kind of okay-ish fight. And then, what other super bosses do we have? We have like a couple of data fights in Kodet, but that doesn't really count. 358 technically has a super boss, but it's just a normal enemy with a big HP bar. Dream Drop Distance has Julius, which is... It's not really much of a super boss, to be honest. It's just like again, it's a normal boss with a bigger HP bar that deals more damage. There's nothing about his behavior specifically, like his abilities, that make him very threatening or interesting. Say what you will about Yuzora, and I will. He's actually like, he feels like a super boss. Take away that 1 HP stealing mechanic, and he would be a very good boss. Anyway, this is the peak of Kingdom Hearts boss fight design. Let's see how much muscle memory I still have for this fucker, okay? So yeah, for context, I'm level 99. The fucker just one-hits you. I have second chance once more, so he leaves me at 1 HP. But if I didn't have that, he would just one-hit you. So yeah, I don't have much muscle memory for this fight at all, turns out. This one you can, however, get a couple of combo finishes in a row in. Oh no, I hate this attack. Yep. So, welcome to Lingering Will. Enjoy your stay. It's one of the things I have accepted over time. Higher difficulty, only increasing HP boss. I mean, difficulty as in the difficulty modes, changing mostly just the HP and damage output. I would prefer if it did a little more than that. Obviously. Well, Kingdom Hearts difficulties also sometimes change the order of certain abilities that you get, I think. Which is kind of neat. At least Kingdom Hearts 3 does. I don't think 1 and 2 do. So that's kind of cool. I prefer in my game to also hook up things like the passive time. After every single attack that an enemy does in my game, they have a little cooldown before they can do anything else. I want to hook that into the difficulty settings as well. So on hard mode, the enemies don't only hit harder, they actually are more aggressive. Maybe even adjust their view cones to be wider on hard mode, that kind of stuff. So that they see you faster, that kind of... I'm not entirely sure yet what I'm going to actually do with that. Thank you, Goofy. You actually did something there for once. You'll make me proud one of these days. Yep, kind of felt that coming. And now we've got this fucker again. And immediately he catches me again, the fuckhead. Oh my god, this fight is brutal, man. Don't worry, nothing in my game is going to be even close to this amount of difficulty. This is insane. But it's fun. But it's insane. Because you kind of just have to hope that you guess what he does as the first move right. Because what I just did there, I could have blocked. But if he did the cannon, I couldn't have blocked. Because that hitbox is so big that you need to move in order to avoid it. Just blocking isn't enough. You can't just... Well, I guess you can technically just reflect spam at the beginning of the fight always. But even there, you see, I reflect spammed, I got knocked back. And then what am I supposed to do? I hope you guys like the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse March, because you're going to be hearing it a lot. Okay, now I actually have some room to... You can't block in mid-air in Kingdom Hearts 2. You can't block in mid-air in 2. Right? I'm not crazy, right? Yeah, you can't do that. Oh, no, 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 you don't. We don't do that attack here, okay? I don't like you doing that attack. Fuck off! Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, what that attack does is it either locks you into only using magic, which is real fucked if you don't have any MP at that moment, or it locks you out of using magic, which means you also can't heal. Both of which are terrible. And you need to deal a certain amount of damage. Yeah, so that's the blue version, which I think locks you into using magic, and the red version locks you into only using melee. So, yeah, you see he has a mini HP bar now. There's another example of just the boss deciding, hey, we're going to do something different for a little bit now. This is now what we're doing. He just gets a replacement HP bar, and you need to make your way through that with either only melee attacks or only magic attacks. Which I do think is actually an interesting idea for a boss mechanic, is forcing the player to either use physical or magic attacks. So that's maybe something that I do want to steal. Not the insanity of what this fight does, obviously, but like some variation of forcing the player into a certain attack style. You can't block him. I've been playing 3 too much, man. In 3 you can block in mid-air, and that's such a nice quality of life improvement. I did it again. I tried to block in mid-air. You can't do that. Also, I've never beaten this guy in critical mode. I've only ever beaten him on beginner mode because he's insane. And the only times I've beaten him, even on beginner mode, is after grinding those data fights you just saw. Yeah, those were the grinding. Because one of them gives you magic up, one of them gives you a power up, and one of them gives you a magic up. So you can grind your stats up quite a bit. By just beating those fights about like 20 times each. I shouldn't have waited. Which makes it a little bit more doable because you deal a bit more damage to him and you withstand 1 or 2 more attacks. Again, on beginner you also have like 3 times or 2 times. I think you deal 3 times the amount of damage and you have double the HP or something like that. The scaling between beginner mode and critical mode is bananas. What you just saw me do in the other fight, where I did an entire HP bar worth of damage with 1 combo, or 1 finisher even. On beginner mode, that would have literally been, I think, 2 or 3 HP bars worth of damage from 1 combo. Which feels good. Feels real good to deal so much damage just on 1 fell swoop, but yeah, when you don't do that, it's a bit of a pain. Well, it's less of a pain for the enemy, I guess. You see, even just reflect spamming that doesn't work. You need to move away from it. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you... Fuck, you do. You see, I don't think that that's fair, though, because I was at full HP, I think. It doesn't really matter, actually, because it one-shots you anyway. Down to 1 HP. But that has 2 instances of damage that are unavoidable. If you get hit by the first, you get hit by the second. Where second chance and once more don't see that as a singular combo. So that is just instant death. Which I don't think is fair game design. The fact that it does that on like a level 1 run, okay, so I wasn't at full HP there, but still. And that's also my bad. The fact that that happens on a level 1 run is annoying, but understandable, because that's not the way that the game was designed to be played. So you're inflicting that pain onto yourself. You could argue that critical mode also isn't the way that the game is designed to be played. That will probably be standard, right? Standard mode. I do think that we should be able to just assume that things are relatively fair, if still difficult, on the hardest built-in difficulty. Because this just kills you. I don't get an opportunity to break out of that. Which I don't think is fair. It is the best designed Super Boss in the series, but I also think that it's not perfect. I think there's a little bit of unfairness to it, which to a certain extent maybe that plays into the go fuck yourself. Okay, so I can't attack. I have to use magic now. Which is kind of a problem because I just used my MP to heal. Okay, we made it out of that phase for the first time. So that's good. Yeah, I'm not gonna bother you guys with this fight anymore. You see, it's difficult. Ridiculously so. So yeah, let's go back to this area. Any other fights that I want to like take a real look at? Lyricsine is just attack spam. Luxord is gimmicky. I guess Axel is kind of interesting to look at maybe. Zaxian we just did. Vexen we just did the easy version of. Zigbar could be interesting. Zamna's not that interesting. You're not that interesting. You're bitch ass. That could be interesting. I guess we'll take a look at Axel real quick. Which is also going to be a pain with this amount of HP, but we'll manage, I'm sure. Come here. I'll make it all stop. So you need to get rid of this burning floor as soon as you possibly can, is the idea, if you didn't catch that yet. Because it's constantly dealing damage, and in the story fight it's not that bad, in this it is really bad. So the way you do that is by dealing some damage to him. He does this attack, which you respond to by a reaction command, and then here we are. So that's the kind of thing where I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of reaction commands, like quick time events, that I might be interested in looking at for my game as well. Something that also has some influence on like the environment, because I think that's really cool. But aside from that, it's actually a remarkably easy data fight. Oh, yeah, he does have a DM though, obviously. But I just kind of spam through that, and I'm fine. Limit form does help a lot. Because it's effectively infinite MP. I thought I had it there. I thought I had it. But yeah, that kind of environmental thing where you have a quick time event that maybe you need to like bait out could be interesting. Although that is kind of what I'm doing without the quick time event part with the mole fight, right? You need to bait him into attacking the pillars in order for him to become vulnerable. Which I do need to think about what I'm actually going to do with that in some regard. Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 2 speedruns is drives and limits a lot. I know. But I have the issue with that mole boss fight where you need to use the environment to damage him. That once the environmental things run out, and if he isn't dead yet, you're kind of screwed. So those need to respawn or something like that, I think. But I don't know how I'm going to do that. But yeah, limit form is grossly overpowered because when you use abilities, it heals you, and when you take damage, it gives you MP back. So if you have second chance once more, you effectively have infinite damage output with iframes, which is kind of disgusting. And you can do it twice in a row if you have 8 or more gauges. So see, oh no, I'm almost dead. Oh, I messed up. Look at me being all coy. But I also do think that this fight shows me one thing, and that is once you understand the mechanic of baiting him into the firewall by doing a combo and then just waiting for him to do that special attack, it's a pretty easy fight. You don't like add in any more complexity on top of that main mechanic. Aside from the fact that it's just really fast and that kind of stuff in this version. Yeah, so what happened there the previous time that I died is I wanted to go into a limit form, then I saw I still had MP. I was like, oh, I'll use Cure instead. And I should have just gone with one or the other and not change my mind halfway through. But yeah, once you get this loop, it's not a difficult fight at all. Again, especially if you abuse limit form. Because you just kind of do this through everything. And you just win. Unless you don't. In which case you die. Which is always the two options that you have in video games, by the way, if you didn't know. You either win or you die. But I think we've kind of done all the research that I wanted to do for today. I don't want to overload my brain too much with different ideas and information. We've had a couple of interesting things. The breaking of habits. Environmental interaction. And what else did we have? Oh yeah, the Zaxian fight gave us the idea of having a mini fight as a part of like a DM. And the idea of DM phases and DM attacks in general. So let me actually write that down somewhere real quick in like Discord here or whatever. to myself? Can I just DM myself? Maybe not. I guess I can just put it in the mod channel where nobody ever looks. Mod stuff. Notes for myself. Please ignore. Bosses need DM moves. And phases. DM phase could be mini distraction fights. Totally separate thing from normal boss until mini fight is done. Environmental interaction, which we already kind of have in most fights. Breaking player gameplay habits as solution to boss. Roxas learn to block instead of dodge. Funnily enough, actually, the final boss in Terra's campaign in Birth by Sleep does the opposite. In that, you've been dodging the entire game because block is kind of useless. Or blocking because dodging is kind of useless. But in that fight... Oh no, the other way around. For the most part, you don't block in that game. Because especially Terra, you don't really get the counter-attack until very late into your playthrough. So you aren't getting encouraged to block. So you're dodging a lot. Well, you're very aggressive for the most part as Terra. But then in that final fight, you need to block. Without blocking, you're not finishing that fight. What else did we have? We had bosses need DM phases and moves. We had breaking habits. We had other stuff, I think. Environments. Mini distraction fights. Multiple abilities at once. Doing multiple abilities at once. Allowing multiple abilities at once to the next one before current one finished. I think that's the main takeaways that we learned here today. Also, teleport Sephiroth style, analyze closer, but sound first, effects second, actual character a split second after that. I think that's all the lessons that we learned today that are important to keep in mind. So that's been Donald Goofy just standing there like, what the fuck are we doing here? I think that's been it for today. We did a good bit of research. You might be surprised that we actually did some research and not just play the game. We kind of did both. I had fun. But when I promise research, I deliver research, man. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, next time we'll be back. I don't know, maybe on Thursday, depending on how the project is doing. Also depending on the subject for the GMTK Game Jam, which apparently is happening this week. I did not know that until yesterday. If I get a good idea to participate in that jam, I will be working on a Game Jam game on Thursday. So either I will be streaming a bit of that, or I will not be streaming because I'll be like neck deep in development for that Game Jam game. So we'll see. But if it's a subject where I'm like, I don't really like the theme doesn't speak to me, I don't really have any good ideas that I want to really invest a lot of time in. I have a lot of things on my plate as is with my own project. So I could probably be more productive with that right now, because I do have some sort of like a deadline to work toward now. And I've set myself quite a bit back by reorganizing my project at a very, very inopportune time. So I might not be participating at all. Again, unless there's something that's like, oh, but I have a really cool idea that I could do. But I kind of doubt it. So we might be playing, what I'm getting at is we might be playing some bosses in Kingdom Hearts 1 on Thursday to see how those hold up. Because I think the bosses in Kingdom Hearts 1, the speed of the combat in my game is a little in between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Kingdom Hearts 1 is a little slower than I am. Kingdom Hearts 2 is a fair bit faster than I am. But I think the bosses in Kingdom Hearts 1 are slightly differently designed from Kingdom Hearts 2. I think the bosses in Kingdom Hearts 1 are very much more designed in a way for you to be able to react to them, whereas Kingdom Hearts 2 almost needs you to predict a lot of the bosses and their behavior, at least with the speed that I can register inputs on my own. Maybe if you're super fast and super good at these games, you can react to Kingdom Hearts 2 bosses a little bit better. And I've gotten better at that with the level 1 run, I'm sure. But a lot of it is just keeping your distance and like waiting for a moment to strike still. Where I think Kingdom Hearts 1 bosses maybe have a slightly stronger sense of pattern, meaning that they're a bit more predictable. And I actually think that bosses being a bit more predictable with some randomness thrown in is a good thing. Like when they do this, always that happens after it. Whereas Kingdom Hearts 2 feels a little less structured in that way. It might just be more complex in its randomness, but I don't think that's necessarily always a good thing. So I would be very interested to see a couple of Kingdom Hearts 1 bosses. I have some save files. I hope that I have a save file just before Riku Ansem, because that's actually a really good boss. I don't know that I do. But in the worst case scenario, it'll take me about 2.5 hours to get to it. So I guess we could do that. It'll be interesting to look at Kingdom Hearts 1 as far as bosses go. And then maybe at some point it'd be a good thing to also look at Kingdom Hearts 3. So we've had all 3 major games. I don't necessarily think that the side games have particularly great boss design, aside from a couple of bosses here and there, so I don't think we need to look at those. And we definitely don't need to. I've been debating with myself a little bit, like maybe I should also take a closer look at Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. For general gameplay and audio-visual style and feedback, well, not necessarily style, but like the particle systems and that kind of stuff. And they overdo it a little with the particles, but I think I'm going to be one of those games that kind of overdoes it with the particles as well. Because again, it's mostly just a hack and slash power fantasy type of game. And I think having a lot of particles helps with that. But the bosses in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth kind of suck. So I don't think we need to look at those bosses for boss AI. Because those bosses generally are just enemies with long HP bars. They have specific moves and that kind of stuff, but they generally, aside from a couple of bosses, they don't do anything with the environment like we've talked about, right? Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 is way more fluid than my game. That being said, my game is kind of floaty in its combat, which a lot of Kingdom Hearts games are just losing their shit when they hear that, probably. I personally don't dislike the floatiness of the later Kingdom Hearts games. I kind of think that it's fun. It is within reason, right? If we take flow motion into account for dream drop distance, that is not floatiness, that is just broken movement. But I actually think that the floatiness is kind of fun. So I don't even have a different concept of ground and aerial combat, mostly because that means that if I did, every weapon would need to have 2 different combos, which means 2 different sets of animations, which is a lot of work. But also because I don't really want to incentivize necessarily having ground combat. And I want it to be easy to have mid-air combat. So in that regard, I do steer a little closer to the way that Kingdom Hearts like 3 and Birth by Sleep might feel. But I think Birth by Sleep is probably actually the closest for what my game feels like. It's relatively fast in its combat. It's fairly floaty. And you have a decent amount of customizability in like a deck loadout for your magic. Yeah, I think Birth by Sleep is actually the closest to what my game is, funnily enough. Kingdom Hearts 3 bosses that you could use for comparison: Marshmallow, Davy Jones, the dinosaur. I think the dinosaur is a little tricky, but might be interesting. Lich. The Lich is interesting in the idea that he also spawns in other enemies, so maybe for that like defense boss that I talked about earlier today, which just spawns a couple of enemies in that you have to take care of before the fight progresses. The Lich might be interesting. I do think that for the most part, Marshmallow and mostly Davy Jones are pretty good ones in Kingdom Hearts 3 to take a look at. But for combat as a whole, Kingdom Hearts 3 is even more fluid than 2. And I think I like a certain amount of fluidity, but I do think that having a little less of a flow between abilities and having abilities slightly more clearly have a beginning and an end is good. When you're just mashing away in Kingdom Hearts 2 even, especially in 3, it's not always clear if a Keyblade swing was a like secondary motion of a single attack or not. And the further you get into longer and longer combos in these games, the more that becomes an issue. And I actually don't like that as much. I do prefer the idea that like one swing is one ability. Feels like it is more intuitive that way. Anyway, I'll be back on Thursday. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Doing some more philosophy on boss design and stuff. As I am fine-tuning my own just general anime AI, but also boss AI. That's what I've been working on lately a lot. And it's a lot of work, man.